Hi, my name is David Svetkovsky, and today we wanted to take you through a topic that we've been inundated with people saying, "Hey, can you run us through more information around virtual assessment centres and some of the key considerations?" So, together with Sophie Upton, who is probably a virtual assessment centre thought leader in the space in 6 months through no choice of her own. 6 months ago, Sophie was literally thrown under the bus to get her head around virtual assessment centres, and I'd say she's definitely mastered it now. So we will take you through 5 key considerations based on our learning. We've delivered hundreds now of assessment centres virtually, and there's some key elements that could help you if you're delivering this by yourselves to successfully deliver them, or if you need to partner, obviously, to speak to organisations such as ourselves and the many others out there that are playing in the virtual assessment centre space. So I'm going to take you through what the 5 considerations are quickly, and then throw it over to Sophie one by one, just to give you her thoughts, tips, and advice based on her detailed experience over the last 6 months. But the 5 considerations are the candidate experience. What's a candidate experience going to be like? What's the assessor experience going to be like through the process? How are you going to design and deliver activities in this virtual space that are on the mark and are able to, point 4, extract the competencies? So what are your competencies? How are you going to review your competencies and make sure you're addressing your competencies and the candidates are showcasing them? And point 5, considering how you're going to use the virtual assessment center experience, but to also ensure that you're providing the right candidate experience through the right candidate feedback. So candidate feedback being the 5th topic. So we'll start with topic 1, and I'll throw it over to Sophie to take us through the key points in ensuring a great candidate experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as you mentioned, candidate experience is at the forefront of our mind whenever we're working with clients to kind of design that virtual experience. Although it is virtual, it is still the candidate's first in-person interaction with somebody from the business. So it's really important to keep that session engaging and make sure they feel comfortable with the session, as it's a new process for not only yourself, but also them going through this virtual recruitment process over the last few months. So some of the tips that we implemented were a candidate concierge. So making sure that there was somebody they had access to throughout the entirety of the session for any technical questions that they had, or just making sure they felt comfortable with the formatting. Things like interaction with senior leaders, current graduates, even opportunities for question and answers with the graduate managers, just extra little things that you can do that make sure that they feel comfortable and get the most out of the session as they would in an in-person assessment centre as well.
Thanks, Sophie. And I think one of the things I've really noticed is the amount of senior leaders, CEOs, being able to take 5 to 10 minutes out of their day in a Zoom meeting from home, and just the organic nature of them dialing in from home has been really effective.
Yeah, absolutely. And even touching on the assessor experience, I think we're seeing lots more take up from assessors now that they can just dial in from their home. They don't have to travel to different venues or different cities or stuff like that. So it's a lot easier to get a bit more buy-in from the business and get a lot more people involved. But in that, you also need to consider the assessor experience and how you can support them to make sure they're assessing effectively and efficiently. We find that pre-briefings work really well, making sure that they're really well equipped with the information that they need to assess effectively, and also considering the real-time support that they might need on the day, because things can and will go wrong. So it's really important to consider what support you can provide during the session itself.
So that was, we covered obviously the candidate experience, the assessor experience. Talk us through point 3, Soph, in terms of a consideration of how to design and deliver the activities in this new format.
Yeah, we find that it's a bit different to in-person assessment centres. So normally in person, we might kind of filter some of the information that the candidates need and use a bit of a phased approach, even throw some change ups in there to assess their adaptability and resilience. But we find that in a virtual setting, you have to tweak the activity a little bit. So make sure it's compatible for a virtual setting. Rather than drip feeding instructions, you might consider just providing everything up front so that candidates can then, work on their own time and deliver the results with all the information provided up front. Even a lot of clients have been using that pre-work component, so sending out some information and little tasks that candidates can do before they arrive at the session, just allows them to kind of feel comfortable and have some sort of control over the work that they're going to be able to present and provide in terms of their contributions to the discussion as well.
How have you leveraged, predominantly we've been using the Zoom platform, how have you been leveraging some of the technology, inbuilt technology within Zoom to support the delivery of the assessment centres, such as the whiteboards and the chat boxes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really important to make the most of the tools that these teleconferencing platforms provide. So we've really been utilising that whiteboard tool. We give candidates instructions on how to use that and encourage them really to make the most of that and use it as a way to collate all their notes and share as they would if they were writing down in person, writing down their notes and working as a team. So in that aspect, it's worked really well.
So we head into point 4, which is understanding the competencies that you're assessing and how to map them across to the virtual assessment centre environment.
Yeah, you want to make sure that the indicators, both positive and negative, will actually come out in that virtual setting. Competencies such as, building rapport and active listening and things like that, it might be a little bit hard to assess that in that virtual environment. So just making sure that the information you're providing your assessors to assess will actually come out and they can use that information and that context to actually give candidates a rating and provide them with some substantial feedback based on the behaviours that are likely to come out in a virtual setting.
And what have you found for your detailed experience? What is the easiest competency to assess and the potentially the most difficult competency that you've assessed?
I think the most difficult would probably be that adaptability and resilience, in the sense that normally we provide them with a bit of a change up scenario, or we kind of interrupt them and see how they adapt to that new information. But you don't really want to interrupt them when they're working through a project online virtually. It's already hard trying not to interrupt candidates when they're interacting. So I think we've had to adapt the way that we assess that competency. I think the easiest is probably the traditional ones like teamwork and communication. You can still assess that in that group setting. They still have that ability to collaborate and interact and share their ideas, and that's been really effective to assess.
Fantastic. And finally, as a part of delivering an optimum candidate experience, how have you managed the feedback process through virtual assessment centres?
I think it really stems to the way that you get your assessors to record their feedback. So we've been utilising the digital assessment centre tool, and that makes it really easy for us to collate all of the feedback that assessors have shared, constructive feedback that candidates provides real value as well. So they're actually getting information that they note and the assessors are noting throughout the entire activity, both positive and negative indicators. It just really guides the assessors through the process. And then at the other end, candidates get a report that details their highest performing areas, their lowest performing areas, and some areas for development. So in that sense, the virtual space has really allowed us to utilise that feature.
Well, there are 5 fantastic considerations, Sophie, and I really want to thank you because you really are a virtual assessment centre thought leader for sharing these. I know you'll hate me saying that, but thank you for sharing these, and to our audience out there, we hope these graduate insights are helping you. But as always, if you need any support or you want to speak to us in further detail, please feel free to reach out. And once again, thank you, Ms. Sophie Upton.
Thank you.